Welcome to the Sixth Wheels Consulting Podcast, dialoguing disability and discussing difference, inclusion, and all abilities in today's world. Now here are your hosts, Matthew Shapiro and Bob Nolly.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You have found us again. We're so happy. This is the Six Wheels Consulting Podcast. You found us on episode 6. Matthew Shapiro, how are you?
I'm great, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing great. You sound like You're in fair voice. You sound great.
I've always got a booming voice. You should know that by now.
That's right. Step back from the mic. No, you don't need to. You sound great. That's my job. That's my problem. We'll take care of everything.
Awesome.
So we're in episode 6, so we're moving right along.
Yeah.
Have a party. Let me tell you have a party. We hit 10, we hit 25 and 50 and 100.
Hey, that sounds great. I'm always down for a good party.
Wouldn't that be great? Hey, in episode 1, you mentioned you had a book.
Yeah.
Now that we need to re-mention that again because, usually you start a podcast, you talk and you develop your audience, you talk about the work, and then you could say, hey, I'm working on a book, stand by for more. So we just launched with, oh yeah, I got a book. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to be part of a group of 13 authors to put together a book called Infinite Inspirations. And each chapter is one of the 13 authors, it's their story of some situation where, they were motivated or they thought about something differently. So it's a very thought-provoking book. It's an uplifting book. Each chapter has its own different story. I did one all about getting out of my comfort zone and rock climbing and being part of a program called No Barriers where people with disabilities are challenged to get out of their comfort zones. My mom did a chapter, and we're just looking to try and get the messages of this great book out to different audiences. And I would encourage people, they can find it on my speaking website, which is MatthewShapiroSpeaking.com. Again, that's MatthewShapiroSpeaking, all one word, .com. And if you go to my shop, you can find a copy of the book. I think it sells for, it's either $20 or $25.
Money well spent, either way.
Yes,
well spent, either way.
It's a great read. It's an uplifting read, and hopefully it would get people to think differently about just a lot of challenges or think positively about certain things. And so again, just go to my website. The book's called Infinite Inspirations, and I hope that our listeners would be interested in grabbing a copy and checking it out. But
so would it be me? Would I be going too far to say, people going out, our listeners that want to support you, coming out and buying a copy of the book would help you keep your work going?
That would certainly be a huge help.
That's not too much of a stretch. Heck no.
As a young entrepreneur, every little penny and everything helps. So I would greatly appreciate if our listeners would take that leap of faith and they'll find a great read. It's a great book. I've read it myself cover to cover, and it just it motivates me, and I think the messages would motivate a lot of others. So I would greatly appreciate if our listeners took us up on that opportunity to check out that book.
And that's MatthewShapiroSpeaking.com.
Correct. Yes, sir.
I'm only the co-host. I have to remember these things.
You're doing great.
Since we're loose and we're feeling good here now, we're in fine voice. We described,
yes.
And we've pushed our wares so far. Let's like to keep this kind of looser now. I want to ask you something, and this could be the end. This could be the end of our short relationship.
Yes.
However, here's I want to. There, folks are asking these questions, and I just want to bring you to the mic and let you talk about them.
Yeah.
So, are you dating anybody right now?
Bob, you're making me blush over here, man. No, but let me put it this way: I am single and always ready to mingle and meet amazing people. So, I'm always looking for that partner in crime, so to speak. And it's an interesting topic, and dating and relationships is an interesting avenue, particularly for people with disabilities. And I'm nervous and excited to have this conversation with you.
Oh my! Now even I'm blushing. All right, so we're not going to name anybody's names here, okay?
Sure.
Except yours and mine. But if you met a young lady that you'd want to go on a date with, what's the first step?
I would say that the first step, even before having like that intimate conversation, right, is to just establish a friendship with them, right? Like a lot of the people that I have become interested in from a romantic standpoint have started out as amazing friends and people that I just enjoy being around, right? Like you have to enjoy being around a person that you're interested in. You have to enjoy some of the same things that you are interested, have some of the same interests, so to speak, and just have a genuine friendship from there and see where it goes. And hopefully something more can blossom from those types of situations and conversations.
So there are people jumping up out of their seats now going, don't listen to him, don't listen to me. They're thinking. They're screaming at you not to listen to me. He's old. I want to set aside all the online dating stuff. I'm going to set aside eHarmony, set aside Tinder, anything else like that. I just want to set that aside because you made the point. The whole thing starts about having a conversation and just hanging out, somebody you know. Where historically do you find people that you'd want to date? You find them in school, you find them in church, you find them on the job.
Yeah, no, it's well, and I'm gonna actually push back a little bit if I may, but I'll answer your question at first. I have found a lot of people that I've become interested in just through my personal networks, right, and my having gone to school with people or having done disability work with people. But I'll be honest, and you might want to come through the computer and kind of give me a good old nudge a little bit. But I also tend to do some of those online dating things. Believe it or not.
See, I never was there, so good for you. All right, good.
Yeah, because and I think that is another particular way, particularly for people with disabilities, to try to put themselves out there too, right? Like. I think there are, and we all know that this is a very honest podcast, so I want to give honest, have an honest conversation about dating and relationships, and in a lot of situations, like society doesn't really know that. Just like any able-bodied person, like a person with a disability wants to have a significant other and wants to sort of have that partner in crime, so to speak, just like anyone else would. They want families and they want significant others and they want to feel that sense of love from someone else. And so I would tell society as a whole, don't be afraid to consider somebody with a disability as a potential significant other if you find that spark with someone, and figure out the best way that you all could work as a couple and as a unit, because it just like anybody with any significant relationship, like you're gonna have to figure out how to make the quirks and the differences, whether it be because of your disability or just quirks and differences that you have as a couple. You have to figure out how to make those work. And so, like I said, I would just say that don't discount a person with a disability as a potential partner, whoever they may be.
Tell us what a first date looks like.
For Matthew, a first date?
Well, sure, you can, anybody you've talked to that's, frame it up for us.
Yeah, so for me, I am the type of person that I don't like loud settings and like bars and different things like that. I am the type of person, as I hope most of our listeners know by now, I'm the type of person that loves to talk, right? So I want to be in a setting where I can get to know someone and have a really intimate conversation with somebody. So, for me, like an ideal date would be a dinner setting, or a setting where, maybe like a walk or a picnic, or, going to a movie and then going out after the movie, just to really sit down with that person and get to know them on a very special level. And obviously you have to make sure that those settings are accessible, and you can have access to them, and that again, it's just a fun environment to be with that person, to get to know that person, and to sort of take that leap of faith into dating and relationships.
So what would be the perfect first date for you?
Oh man, that's a good question.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here.
That's why you team me up so well, Bob. I love it. So I would say, going to like dinner and a movie. I'm a big movie buff. I'm a big, I love to, like I said, have that setting where I can get to know a person, and really have a conversation. I am looking for somebody. I'll use myself as the example, and I'll get vulnerable on the podcast a little bit. But I'm looking for somebody who can challenge me, both, wit and humor wise, and then also just challenge me to make me a better person.
Let me tell you, you're absolutely right. I think the best people want to be challenged.
Yeah, and I want to. I want somebody to call me out on if I'm doing something stupid. I want somebody to call me out and try to make me better from that. I want somebody in my corner to so that I can kind of have somebody that I can share my great news of a success I've had at work, or a success I've had on a speaking gig. I really want somebody that I can lean on in that regard, and I want somebody that has some of the same interests as I do. Obviously, I'm a huge sports nut, so if my significant other is into sports in some way, or can at least learn to grow into loving sports, I'm okay with that. But I also want to try and learn what my partner's interests are, and to have me try and learn and learn to love what my partner's interests are. It's any relationship is a two-way street, and you have to give and take a little bit, and you have to learn to love your partner's interests and your partner's quirks and your partner's desires and wishes that they have, and be able to be a team and be in their corner at any given time.
Okay, there's a recurring theme in everything you've said there. So now I'm going to take the next step and ask you this. So on that perfect date, whether it's dinner and a movie, or whatever the setting is for that conversation,
yeah,
probably, I'm thinking, one thing you don't want to do is go to dinner, coffee shop, or lunch, or wherever you are, and having this conversation and have to do all the talking about the disability.
Right.
How do you what is your life like? What do you have to do? How do you do these things?
Right. So,
I'm thinking if that conversation is happening, the person on the other side of the table is not the one you're looking for.
Right. Really good conversation. And I know a lot of people with disabilities who are in significant relationships. I've had a couple in my day. Like I said, I'm at this moment, I'm single and ready to mingle. So ladies, if you're interested, I'm ready to have a good time and get to know as a person as well. But those conversations, if the relationship really starts to deepen, those conversations like sort of happen, right? And,
right, yeah.
Your partner, like I'll use me as the example, like, right, like my partner would know how can I help Matthew in scenario A or scenario B? Like, what is the best way that Matthew wants help, when we're getting dinner or, when we're out and about, and that person would pick up on those things and know those things. And for me, I'm an open book, right? And I've always tried to talk about this on the podcast, but I'm an open book when it comes to talking about my disability. And so, no, I would not necessarily immediately talk about that on a first date. But I will also say in to the exact opposite of that, like for me, my disability is immediately apparent, right? Because as soon as I roll into the room, you see my wheelchair, you see me, and so it can't be 100% avoided, right? But you don't always get right down into the nitty gritty. You figure out what someone's, interests are, and you figure out, how can we connect as a pair, and go from there. One of the things that I will always remember about several of my relationships is that, it's going well when people look at you and say, I don't see the wheelchair, right? And I don't see the disability. Now, granted, it's a part of me, and they're aware of the challenges, and that's ultimately what I'm looking for. Not only do I want somebody to challenge me and somebody to make me laugh and sort of challenge me intellectually too, but I want somebody to ultimately get to the point where they don't necessarily see the chair, and they just see me as a great significant other. And I can tell you that I consider myself sort of a Southern gentleman, right? Like I tend to any significant other that I've had, I treat them with the utmost respect, and I value who they are as people, and I consider myself a Southern gentleman, I would say. So again, ladies, if you're interested, but it's interesting because that is a very, how do you navigate that conversation of dealing with disability and things like that? But as I said, I think if the connection is really there, you'll figure out the right times to have those conversations and figure out what my needs are as a person with a disability, and me figure out what my partner's needs are.
Sure.
Too.
I mean, I think we would both agree. I mean, I'm looking at it from my generation, looking downhill, going, dating's hard. And if I was out there now, I would just be, I just can't do it. I can't do it. And I'll tell you just how hard it is, even for me without the disability, is my wife Jackie and I, we started dating and we met at work. And we're going out on our first date. And my sister, who I love dearly, is not yet married. She goes, oh, you don't have time at our age. We don't have time to figure out and do the dance, figure out what each other wants. You just need to know on that first date what they're looking for. So we're having this nice dinner, Jackie and I are, and out of nowhere, I just said, so what are you looking for in this relationship? And today she tells the story about she almost ran screaming from the restaurant. She's just like, I'm just looking for a dinner buddy somewhere, because we had both been married before. We both had children. And, it ended up being great. But, I just popped that question out there that was like, and she just, for months, she just went, what the heck were you thinking about?
Sure.
And my sister finally stepped up when they met and said, oh, that was me. I'm sorry. That was all me.
No,
so that can certainly derail the whole relationship.
Sure. So, but it sounds like it must have worked out pretty well for you in the end.
So far. I should drag her in here to Studio 17 and just put the mic to her and go, well, what do you think? We've encouraged people to go out to the Six Wheels Consulting Facebook page and drop us a question and give us a thought, tell us what they think. And our good buddy Emily D here, we'll just call her Emily D. She has a question for us that, she wants to know if you've got any fun or awkward date stories.
Oh boy!
Now let's make sure we take care of anybody else. We don't want to mention anybody else, but just has there ever been a comic moment of awkwardness?
I mean, I think those are like the best moments, to be honest with you. Like, right? Because in a lot of situations, like on some dates I've had, people are like, well, how do you handle like X, Y, or Z situation? And in most cases, that's when you and your significant other or the person that you're interested in, that's when you can have like a really good laugh and sort of share an intimate moment, just sort of laughing at the absurdity of silly situations. And that happens regularly when you're a person with a disability. Ones that ultimately sort of pop into my head is like people don't necessarily in some situations people don't necessarily talk directly to me. They'll talk to the person that I'm with, and they're like, well, why don't you ask him? And a lot of people don't know that I speak very clearly, I would hope. And in some situations, you roll your eyes for a second, and then you kind of laugh about it, and you figure it out. And I'll be super transparent. I'm trying to continue to get out there in the dating world. It's as you said, Bob. It's very hard. It's very challenging, particularly when you throw in the layer of disability. And so I have some experience, but I would not say that I have a ton of experience in that area. But I'm also just speaking from those experiences that I do have. And I'm always looking for more, and I'm looking for different outlets to try to meet new people and see where things go with certain people. I sort of veered away from Emily's question, so I apologize, but that you find the funny in the awkward situations that often arise.
I think it's a perfect answer. It's a perfect answer.
Yeah.
Emily, if you want your money back, just, forget it. The conversations we're talking about are great. For me, it's not the same thing. I love the conversation of what's your favorite movie ever? You can't have a favorite movie. Okay, tell me your 10 favorite.
Right.
What's your favorite album? Of course, the people that don't even know what an album is that are listening now. And I'm looking at a cabinet I have of 1,200 albums in here, and I can't name one. I can maybe name 20. So those kind of things. And the question Jackie and I always centered around Jedi or Wizard. Which one do you want to be?
I love it.
And she's down firm on the Wizard side, and I was on the Jedi side.
Be strong with you, sir.
Yeah.
Be strong.
See? I'm right there. She goes, no. It was right in the middle of when, Harry Potter and Star Wars cross paths and
sure.
Lord of the Rings. I'm like, okay. Just relent. That's fun stuff.
Well, and one of my favorite things to do is like sort of play like 25 questions, right? Where you just kind of go back and forth. And you think of really fun questions, right? Like it's not the generic, like, what's your favorite color? What's blah, blah, blah. But it's like, because you can figure that stuff out later, but it's like, what is one dream that you have, or what is like one thing that you've always wanted to do that you've never done? And that really digs into your person across the table. That really digs into like what their interests are, what they hope to achieve with their career or their lives, and that's where really good rich conversation comes into play, and that's really where you can find if that connection is really there, and hopefully turn that into a long-standing relationship. And to be very honest with you too, one of the other things that I do as a person who's always single and ready to mingle is like I look at other examples of people with disabilities who are in relationships, and I ask them questions of like, how have you navigated this? Like, I don't want to ever claim that I know all the answers, right? Like I'm giving you just from my perspective, just giving you a few of my thoughts. But I'm always drawing on other people's experiences. And I always sort of say, well, I've seen XYZ person with a disability has a significant other, and they've been very happy for an extended period of time. And so you try to just reach out to them and say, what makes your relationship work, and how
great idea.
How have you made it work? Because, like I said, it can be challenging, and it can be nerve-wracking to really dive into a relationship with a person with a disability. And here's a funny thing that often comes up too, Bob, is that people always say, do you only date other people with disabilities, when they sort of ask me this question? And I've always said I'm willing to date anyone and everyone if I find that connection point and I find that I enjoy being around that person. We all know that I'm a very happy-go-lucky person. So if I enjoy spending time with people that I'm with and I find some romantic attraction with them, they can be people with disabilities, they can be people without disabilities. I don't discriminate in love in any way, shape, fashion, or form.
All right, perhaps that's where I let you have the last word right there. So, you have a great date night on a Friday or the weekend, and then Monday it's back to the grind of the job or entrepreneur. You have got some exciting news going on under Wonderway. Tell us about a program that we might hear about soon.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to have launched a new program with Six Wheels, and it's called the Six Wheels Consulting Certification Program. So it's very similar to, as part of what we do for Six Wheels, we do consultations of spaces. But we've sort of, I guess you could say, streamlined that process to really make it a certification program. So we at Six Wheels would go into a workspace or, a work environment and do an assessment of their media platforms, and are they representing people with disabilities in their brochures or their websites? Is the space compliant? And that's basically what a normal consultation would look like. Is we look at just the space, but the certification program looks at the space. It looks at for inclusive approaches. It looks at social media and brochures and other media outlets to see if they're representing people with disabilities. It looks at training and other things to help people in that office better understand how to interact with employers or potential customers who have disabilities. And so it does a whole lot more as well.
Sure, that sounds great. I mean, we've given everybody an adult dose right there. Why not next time when we get to episode 7, why don't we talk a little bit more detail on how, if you're ready, we can talk about how folks might get involved.
Oh, yeah, no, I'd love to. And we just sent out some press releases, and we're looking for some businesses to get on board and be part of the certification program, because if they do, they get some really cool benefits, and we'll talk about some of those benefits on the next episode.
Oh, that'll be great. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Six Wheels Consulting Podcast. This is episode 6 with your host, Matthew Shapiro, and me, Dr. Bob Nolly. Everyone, just remember, keep rolling on and think inclusion. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Bob.